Okay, so the Finance Minister and the State-Owned Enterprise Minister are intending to announce that the government will make a supplementary disclosure to the Mighty River Power Offer document. The existing document already outlines the risks of investing in Mighty River, including legislative and regulatory risks. And a lot of people will already be aware that Labor and the Greens have come out with their proposal to have a centrally planned electricity system where the government makes all the major decisions. But we want to make sure we've fulfilled all of our obligations under securities legislation, and that means letting people know of this development through the proper channels. People can make up their own minds about a number of things, but they would include: 1, the likelihood of Labor and the Greens becoming government; 2, even if they were, could they actually practically implement this policy; 3, over what time frame might that be; and 4th, what would the effect of the policy be. So there are a lot of uncertainties out there. Nonetheless, the advice we got was that Labor and the Greens proposal could be material to people's decisions to buy shares, so a supplementary disclosure should be submitted. Put it simply, if we'd known about this a few weeks ago, we would have put it in the original offer document. But Labor and the Greens chose to announce their proposal after the share offer had opened. That share offer remains on track for a listing day of May 10th. You'll be aware, because I've said it so many times now, that I can't talk about anything to do with price or demand. So I don't intend to make any comments on that. But what I can say at a more general level is that what Labor and the Greens are proposing, if they could ever actually get it in place, would be a huge step backwards for New Zealand. A competitive electricity market, which we significantly improved in 2009, is bringing down the rate of price increases and is the only way of delivering competitive prices into the future. They want to replace that with a big state agency controlling almost every aspect of the electricity system. But experience shows that politicians and central bureaucracies do a bad job of setting prices and ensuring supply. You can see that even now in South Korea, which has a similar system to the one that Labor and the Greens are proposing. They are having big price rises, and people are having to alter their working hours to prevent the country running out of electricity. More broadly, if the Greens and Labor ever got close to government, it would introduce a lot of regulatory uncertainty. We need people, both Kiwis and overseas investors, to invest in our country. But people will think twice about investing in a country where the government can turn around and change the rules on you overnight, and that will cost jobs and it will cost wages. New Zealand is actually doing well compared to most other developed countries in the world, and that is because we have sensible economic policies that steered us through a recession, through a global financial crisis, and through a major natural disaster. Labor and the Greens seem to want to chuck all that away. Just in terms of the budget, growth will be a focus of Budget 2013. New Zealand is performing better than most other countries. Our GDP growth of 3% in 2012 compares with 1.6% in the United States, 1.1% in Canada, 0.4% in Japan, 0.3% in the UK, and -0.9% in the Euro area. We're on track for 2 to 3% growth over the next few years, even taking into account the impact of the drought. At our forum, I met with Christine Lagarde of the IMF, who said New Zealand's economy is performing a lot better than other countries, and the IMF is very supportive of the government's policies. As Bill English said in his speech last week, the government remains on track for surplus in 2014-15. This is a considerable achievement and a significant turnaround in just a matter of a few years. This government, in 5 budgets, has increased its discretionary spending by only 1/10 of the amount the previous Labor government did over their last 5 budgets. We have shown that over the last 4.5 years we can run a very tight ship while remaining the trust and support of New Zealanders. Just in terms of Afghanistan, as you know, the last group of New Zealand Defence personnel who served with the New Zealand Provincial Reconstruction Team in Bamiyan returned home at the weekend. The return of the 60 personnel marks the end of New Zealand's decade-long commitment to the PRT and follows the recent flag-lowering memorial unveiling. We are proud of our very significant contribution in Afghanistan, but it came at a great cost. We will never forget the 10 brave soldiers who gave their lives. With Anzac Day coming up this Thursday, I will be remembering the sacrifice these soldiers made. I'm advised that the handover of Kiwi Base went well and overall the extraction went smoothly. The theatre extraction team based at Bagram Air Base is continuing to work on the final logistics of returning supplies and equipment to New Zealand and will return home in May. The PRT has made a significant contribution in Bamiyan security and made a lasting difference to the lives of people there. I want to thank each and every person who contributed to the effort over the past 10 years. We're also very grateful to the service of the Afghan interpreters who risked their lives to help New Zealanders in Bamiyan. Today we welcome 30 interpreters and their families to New Zealand for resettlement. These men played a vital role in the operation of the PRT, and it's only right that we recognise their contribution. The group will spend their first 8 weeks in the country at the Mangere Refugee Resettlement Centre, where they'll prepare for their new lives in New Zealand. They will be resettled in Hamilton and Palmerston North. We'd like to offer them a very warm welcome and wish them the best. In terms of my activities this week, tomorrow I'm in the Coromandel Electorate, Wednesday I'll be in Auckland, Thursday, which is Anzac Day, of course I'll be attending the dawn service here in Wellington and the national service in Wellington, and then on Friday I'm in the Taupo Electorate. This weekend will be the first of the National Party regional conferences, with the mainland conference in Hanmer Springs, which you're all welcome to join me on, and I'll be speaking on Sunday morning in case you miss it. We'll send out the speech. And just for your diaries, there's no cabinet or post-cabinet meeting or press conference next week.
Do you feel, Prime Minister, that Labor it's trying to sabotage your Mighty River Power float with its policy announcement?
Oh, look, I don't want to go into their motivations. People can make up their own mind why they've done what they've done. I don't think the policy is workable. I don't certainly think it will be in the best interests of New Zealand, but the government needs to fulfil its legal obligations and make sure that New Zealanders are informed of all the risks.
But it's not ideal you haven't put out the supplementary disclosure, and it could be potentially pretty confusing for a lot of first-time investors.
It could be, but I think it's really important that we fulfil our legal requirements. I mean, under securities legislation, it's a serious business. We're about getting on with the float, and that's going to take place on May 10th, as I said. But it's really important that we don't open ourselves up to any kind of legal action, if you like. That was the advice of the due diligence committee got over the weekend, and we're following that advice.
So people get the money back if they feel they didn't have a legal action?
If they've pre-registered already, effectively sent in their cheque, yes, they're free to do that, I think, over the course of the next 5 days or so. Otherwise, it's business as usual.
What do you make of the way that Labor agrees to steer people like that off?
Well, my only advice to people is if you have any concerns at all, get advice. At the end of the day, I can't make any predictions about price or about the appetite for people to buy shares because I'm just legally prohibited from doing so, not because I don't want to, but because I can't. So in the end, they should get their own advice if they're concerned. It's up to them to decide all of the risks there, including whether Labor and the Greens can actually ever get there, whether they can actually ever implement the policy over what time frame. All I can say is that my personal view, we've got an electricity system that's working well in New Zealand. If we want to go back to the days of a central bureaucracy where bureaucrats in Wellington determine whether we make generation decisions for new electricity generation, set prices, run over the top of private contracts that have been established. And to me that is far left-wing policy, and it just sums up what I've been saying. I think this election will be fought on a centre-right versus a far-left opposition.
Would it not have been reasonable, though, for Labor and Greens to have released this policy a couple of weeks ago so you didn't have to confuse people with another disclosure?
Yeah, and you can ask them about their own motivations for doing that. You can also ask them of their motivations of why in 2006 in government they actually rejected this very policy. And the truth is, because it's actually really bad policy, it might be okay politics if you're in opposition, but it ain't good policy.
Have you had any update on the value that has been eroded from various companies since the announcement?
Oh, look, I've had Stephen Joyce giving me a brief sort of update, but I mean, obviously it varies. I mean, last time I looked at my iPhone, which is not necessarily the most reliable source of economic advice. I think Contact was up this afternoon, but you know, overall, the sort of number he was talking about this morning was over $500 million wiped off the stock exchange. I don't know whether that's accurate right now.
And just getting back to that Labor Greens policy, wiping goes like that off the stock exchange at the moment, and obviously wiping the money off Mighty River Power, that's clearly got this project.
Well, I can't comment about the last bit because I can't determine whether it has or hasn't done that. But in terms of overall, I mean, the bigger issue here is what is the message it actually sends international investors and New Zealand investors? And the message it sends is that whenever they see any kind of political issue, they are actually prepared to travel right over the top of basically orthodox economic policy. So do you really want these people with their hands on the levers? I mean, do you really want them printing money, have the government out there building houses again, basically ripping up proposals to build Transmission Gully, whacking on a massive ETS, nationalising power companies? I mean, if it's power companies, what's next? I mean, petrol stations and petrol companies are in the news a fair bit, supermarkets are in the news a fair bit. I mean, if it's good enough for this, hey, it's good enough for everything else.
But do you think it's responsible to launch this policy now, you know, at a point where they can quickly reap to sale on river power?
Well, as I say, you have to ask them about their motivations. I'm not going to speculate on those. What I am going to do is my job, which is to make sure that the government complies with its legal obligations.
Is there a level of anger though in the Beehive about this and in Treasury?
Can't speak for Treasury because I haven't spoken with them. I would describe it as anger. I mean, in the end, it's horrible economic policy. The last time we had these kind of policies, people huddled around candles because the lights went out. I mean, we had a very dry year last year in New Zealand and there were no blackouts. In 1992, it was a very dry year. We did have the sort of policies we had in place. There were significant blackouts in New Zealand. But, you know, the concept of a bunch of bureaucrats in Wellington determining whether we should actually be building a new power station vis-a-vis the market saying there's increased demand is quite a frightening concept, I think, to a lot of New Zealanders. So Labour looked at it in government with all the full force of all of the officialdom and reports that they could get, and they firmly said no. People like Trevor Mallard and Shane Jones said no, but in opposition.
Is this frustrating